A great piano performance is a work of art. The player manipulates a mechanical instrument made of wood, cast iron, and felt into an array of sounds that have the power to inspire us with deep emotions like joy, sadness, nostalgia, and melancholy. Piano making is also an art, and just as great pianists work tirelessly to perfect the sound of their performances, so too do great piano makers work tirelessly to perfect the sound their instruments can produce. The piano is nothing without the performer, but great piano performances require great instruments. So what makes a great piano? Well, it's not hard to recognize that a broken piano is not an ideal instrument. At the very least, a piano must be in tune and mechanically functioning to properly convey the intentions of the player. But even among properly functioning instruments, not all sound is created equal. We use a variety of adjectives to describe the sounds we hear, both beautiful and unpleasant. We might say a particular sound is bright or dull, harsh or warm, clear or muddy. What we are describing when we use these words is called tone, or the character of a sound. Great pianists practice long hours to perfect their technique so that every movement of their finger produces just the right tone they intend to convey. In the same way, great piano makers strive to build pianos that can produce great tone in just the way that the player intends. The piano is a very complicated instrument with over 12,000 individual pieces. Putting these pieces together into a piano with great tone is like preparing a favorite meal. You might be following a simple recipe, but the result depends on the quality of the ingredients and the quality of the chef. In pursuit of the perfect piano tone, 3 manufacturing traditions have developed: the American tradition, the European tradition, and the newer but recently industry-dominating Japanese tradition. Each of these piano-making schools are excellent in their own right, but they also each have a different ideal of what makes the perfect piano. These ideals are impacted by the rich musical traditions of the cultures and time periods their makers were birthed in. The American tradition includes pianos made by the likes of Steinway, Bechstein, Hamlin, and Baldwin, along with now defunct brands like Chickering and Kanabi. In the golden age of piano manufacturing of the late 19th century, early 20th century, American industry was exploding, with hundreds of piano manufacturers starting up shop mostly around New York City and Boston. This created a tight-knit industry of craftsmen and suppliers where breakthrough advancements in design and production techniques could be disseminated very quickly. These pianos were made for concert halls and the likes of Vladimir Horowitz, Gould, Arthur Rubinstein, and Leonard Bernstein. These are also the pianos heard on famous recordings of the early jazz age and big band eras. Think Count Basie and Duke Ellington, and even later greats like Bud Powell and Bill Evans. The demands of large audiences meant these pianos were designed for power, and it remains true today that American pianos often perform best in the concert hall. The American tradition also developed and has maintained a distinct partiality for a tonal color that, although there exists debate on this, is said to come from production that favors greater overtone resonance. In general, listeners might describe the typical American piano as fatter, deeper, louder, and darker than pianos of other traditions. European pianos have an even longer tradition of piano manufacturing, starting with the invention of the piano by Bartolomeo Cristofori in Italy around the year 1700. Since then, most of Europe's great pianos have been manufactured in Germany by the likes of Bluthner, Bechstein, and Hamburg Steinway, along with the Austrian Bösendorfer and Italian Fazioli brands. These are the pianos of the classical masters, including Mozart, Beethoven, Liszt, Chopin, and so many others. From the earliest days, European pianos were primarily manufactured for homes and smaller chamber music halls. These traditions meant that European piano manufacturers tended not to prioritize power like their American counterparts, and instead sought a sound characterized by tonal clarity and warmth. Many today consider European pianos to be the best in the world. The great jazz pianist Oscar Peterson, who primarily played Steinway in his early recordings, famously fell in love with the Bösendorfer at a concert in the 1970s and played 4 encores on the sole excuse that it gave him opportunity to play it longer. Oscar Peterson went on to become a Bösendorfer artist and hand-selected an instrument to be shipped from Vienna to his home in Toronto. Another element contributing to the European sound is a strong tradition of hand craftsmanship. Many of these brands are family-owned, with piano-making techniques that have been passed down through generations. Employee training at these small companies is often considered the highest in the industry. Sadly, competition from modern, mass-produced piano manufacturers has forced many of these historic European brands out of business or overseas. Piano hunters today have to be careful about the brands they buy to ensure that they are indeed made in the traditional European factories. The Japanese tradition began in the early 1900s when Tokusu Yamaha of Nippon Musical Instruments, which later became the Yamaha Corporation, made Japan's first upright piano. Kawai's origins followed closely. Tokusu enlisted the help of Koichi Kawai, who would later form his own company, to help in building his first instruments. Japan piano manufacturing initially had a rocky start on the world market, but they quickly adapted to become a global force. Today, Yamaha is the largest piano manufacturer in the world, and Kawai is not far behind. In terms of tradition, both Yamaha and Kawai are distinctly modern instruments, made primarily for the demands of modern music and modern music recording. They are among the most popular choices for jazz and pop artists, both on the stage and in the studio. This is because Japanese pianos have the unique quality of being able to cut through a dense ensemble mix. The most common thing you will hear people say about Japanese pianos is that they are bright. Whether or not this is a preferred sound is a matter of personal taste. But their brightness is a contributing factor to what makes them so popular with modern music ensembles, where it's often difficult to make the piano carry over the sonically overwhelming demands of amplified music. To answer the question, what makes a piano great? It really comes down to personal taste. Even among the traditions we just learned about, there exists as many different ideals as there are piano manufacturers, and to a greater degree, piano players. Every piano is unique, and it's often the case that a pianist will fall in love with a very specific instrument, while remaining unimpressed with other instruments by the same brand or even the same model. However, this doesn't mean that we can't look at piano manufacturers and recognize the consistent commitment to an intentional ideal that greatness requires. The advancement of modern science means that pianos can now be produced faster, cheaper, and in higher quantity. But despite what the best marketers might tell you, the demands of mass production and the demands of high-quality craftsmanship rarely align. Ultimately, however, what makes a piano great is only a question you can answer for yourself. So the real question is, what makes a piano great to you?